I did not expect Birds of Prey to be this good. I did not expect Birds of Prey to be this great. In fact, I didn't even expect it to be good at all. Take it from the guy whose most popular uploads are on how Joker and Shazam suck. This movie really surprised me. Truthfully, the marketing for this movie wasn't great. The posters were all really well designed, but the trailers were quite poorly edited. Although the movie itself has a lot of plot and exposition, so maybe this was difficult to express in a concise way. It's funny, DC is always praised for their advertising. Man of Steel and Joker had excellent trailers, but the movies sucked, whereas Birds of Prey had bad trailers, and the movie was really good. I completely understand Hollywood movies are foremost made for money. The studio is often placing hundreds of $millions on the line to make these films, so naturally making a profit is of highest priority for the investors. But often with DC, it feels like they are making the movies only for the money. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, and Justice League each have a laundry list of specific issues that make them bad films, but the rush to catch up with Marvel and make Avengers level box office is the clear root of the problems, as none of the creative choices feel natural. As a side note, if you do enjoy these movies, I'm not trying to attack you here. I'm almost envious given how excited I was for Batman v Superman and Justice League when they originally came out. Whilst I personally don't love Aquaman, Shazam, or Joker, I love that DC has recently allowed the directors to make movies that are in line with their own unique visions. So finally, with Birds of Prey, DC has released a movie that I really enjoy, and in this video I'm going to explain why. I have a huge amount of respect for Margot Robbie. She's not only an excellent actor with her performances in Wolf of Wall Street, I, Tonya, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood being of the best of the last decade, but she is also a great producer. Margot Robbie pitched Birds of Prey to DC, and it is likely the main reason why it was made and feels as authentic as it does. Birds of Prey is exactly what a DC comic book movie needed to be. I've felt for years that DC doesn't need to make overly epic and large-scale event movies to be successful. In all of these movies, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Justice League, Aquaman, Shazam, and Joker, a city gets at least partially destroyed. Shazam for the most part attempted to be small scale and more personal, with the team up between Shazam and his friend being the best part of the movie, but then in the last 40 minutes it turns into Man of Steel with an endless CGI fight scene that results in a devastating amount of collateral damage, feeling out of place with the established tone of the film. That movie didn't even need a major villain. It would have been outstanding if it just focused on Shazam gaining his powers. Superhero movies have been widely popular for over a decade now, and it isn't solely because of the action scenes, it's because of the inner struggle that makes them relatable and exciting. Birds of Prey is a prime example of this. It was also made for under half of Suicide Squad's budget, so that's a financial incentive for the studio to make more character-driven comic book movies like this. The movie just focuses on Harley's character development and allows for a small-scale villain like Black Mask to act as a catalyst for growth. The thing about Birds of Prey is that it has a lot of elements that in any other movie would make it bad, but here it isn't an issue due to the tone and your investment in the characters. For example, the villain isn't developed that much, but he's entertaining to watch and bounces off the heroes well, so it's excused. This movie has an R rating and it actually earns it. I like the first Deadpool movie, but sometimes it feels there is just excessive swearing without there necessarily being intention behind the words. Whereas in Birds of Prey, the rating comes naturally. Harley Quinn is a very quirky character, so of course she uses a lot of swear words and is violent, whereas Huntress is quieter in terms of her personality, so she uses little to no swear words. However, she is just as violent. This shows that the creators behind the movie put genuine thought into the characters and didn't just say, look, we've got an R rating, so let's have every character say fuck every other sentence to show how edgy we are. Harley Quinn is both a likable and interesting character in this film. At the beginning of the movie, she is separated from the Joker and is selfish-minded because she feels purposeless. She sort of just commits crimes for the sake of it, which has consequences throughout, such as when Montoya is chasing Harley through Gotham and seemingly random bystanders start attacking her in revenge for her previous crimes. By the end of the movie, she gains more knowledge of herself and finds meaning in working with Cassandra Cain, who sees her as equal, unlike the Joker. It's a simple character arc, but it is successful in getting you invested. Margot Robbie's entertaining and fast-paced performance of Harley makes her likable as well. It's unfortunate that Suicide Squad was the first movie to introduce this version of Harley Quinn. That movie, despite having a cool premise, cared more about its music choices and ripping off Guardians of the Galaxy than its own characters. Luckily, Birds of Prey doesn't suffer from that because the animated opening of the movie does a really good job of letting you know who Harley is going in. Even though she was introduced in the last movie, if you didn't know anything about the character before seeing Suicide Squad, you would leave knowing nothing about her except that she's the Joker's girlfriend. Harley Quinn is an origin story that is very well defined, and I think she is far more deserving of a a movie dedicated to her beginnings than the Joker, who at the end of the day works better when his past is shrouded in mystery, adding to how scary he is. Whereas Harley is more relatable due to the part of her character that struggles to escape a toxic relationship. Anyway, hopefully a prequel is made eventually because that would develop the character even further.
Soon became clear to me that the Joker, so often described as a raving homicidal madman, was actually a tortured soul crying out for love and acceptance. A lost, injured child trying to make the world laugh at his antics. Yes, I admit it. As unprofessional as it sounds, I had fallen in love with my patient.
It's only natural you'd be attracted to a man who could make you laugh again.
I knew you'd understand.
Anytime.
I love the choice of Black Mask as the villain, and the casting of Ewan McGregor was very inspired. The mask looks very dynamic on screen even though it's not worn that often. In particular, I like how despite Black Mask being a smaller scale villain, he is still displayed as incredibly menacing. His introductory scene where he gets Victor Zsasz to cut off the faces of the crime bosses is very effective. The movie probably should have been called just Harley Quinn, as it does heavily focus on her. However, I don't think it's a flaw of the movie that the rest of the Birds of Prey team have smaller roles. Huntress and Black Canary still get good character development, and the main theme of this movie is clearly finding purpose, with both characters factoring into that. Montoya and Cassandra Cain are mainly just there to function into the plot, but this is forgiven by the likable performances by the actors. When I watch a movie, I don't care about accuracy to the source material, so it isn't an issue that the Birds of Prey team in this movie is different to the comics, because the movie is well made. The scene where each of the characters team up against Black Mask works despite occurring late in the movie. All of the characters have been fleshed out so that the conclusion is satisfying. The cinematography by Matthew Libatique, who is most well known for his work with Darren Aronofsky, is another aspect of this movie I find excellent, with the bright and somewhat overexposed colours matching perfectly with the characters and the tone. The action in Birds of Prey really stands out, and I mean that. The fight scene at the police station is now easily one of my favourite sequences in a comic book movie. It's a long scene, moving through several stages in the police station location, but the scene always feels like the stakes are becoming increasingly high and it never drags. For example, the scene starts with Harley fighting the police, then moves to her trying to escape from mobsters, and then ends with a smaller but more intense confrontation between her and Montoya. The small issue with this movie is the pacing. It is very fast paced, but the non-chronological elements at the start of the movie were somewhat convoluted and could have been simplified. The out-of-order structure does interrupt this police scene briefly, but the action escalates so well that you forget about that. The use of paintballs as Harley's primary weapon in the scene is incredibly visually interesting on screen, and both exciting and practical for her to use in the scene. This is another excellent choice by the creators. Harley isn't a cold-blooded killer, so of course she uses something non-lethal, but also colourful like a paintball gun. It's subtle, but it goes a long way in making her a unique character. All of her outfits are really well designed throughout the film. Specifically, I love the costume she wears during this scene. The white t-shirt with her name repeated across is striking and also contrasts against the blue and pink paint colours. The chase scene early in the movie is also very well executed. In other movies, the extreme use of narration would be very polarizing, but here it works because it provides insight into the mind of Harley Quinn and what her internal voice would sound like. Yes, the exposition is a little in your face, and yes, the plot is slightly convoluted, but it still works and doesn't negatively affect the movie, because Harley probably would have a manic-like thinking process. It's also like the movie is depicting the thought bubbles that are present in comic books. This voiceover narration is used heavily in this action scene, and it increases the level of tension whilst providing details about Harley's situation, such as with the people wanting revenge on her. The movie establishes an energetic tone, so that these elements that would otherwise be called lazy actually reinforce character development and the extent to which you enjoy Harley's antics. Where at the start of the movie Harley only thinks about herself, by the end you see that she has found purpose outside of the Joker. This is communicated through both the narration and visuals. I think what DC should learn from this movie is that they have enough great characters at their disposal for directors and writers to make films that aren't necessarily event movies, but are lower budget and stem from creative inspiration. Margot Robbie pitched this to DC, and whilst the movie isn't aiming to be as impactful as Avengers Endgame, it knows what it is and it achieves its aims perfectly. Unfortunately, the first time DC makes an awesome movie with Birds of Prey, it doesn't do amazingly well at the box office. So definitely support this movie when it arrives on streaming and iTunes. What were your thoughts on Birds of Prey? Do you think it's great, or do you think it sucks? Sound off in the comments and make sure to hit that subscribe button for more content like this. Thanks for watching.